Welcome to Lyra Echo Stories, where every story echoes emotions, memories, and hidden truths. Step in and feel the echo of every tale.
1 year. That is how long I spent building something for a woman who had no idea it existed. One corporate event account with a $200,000 annual spend limit. One college roommate who agreed to cater a wedding at cost as a personal favor to me $8,000 instead of $22,000. One marketing client who sent flowers to every industry event I had ever managed and who owed me an unspoken professional debt that people in hospitality understand without having to name it. One photographer who had shot 4 Meridian Company dinners and who, when I asked, quoted $3,200 instead of his standard $7,500. $62,000 in vendors, contracts, personal guarantees, and discount arrangements assembled over 12 months quietly, without anyone asking me to do it, and without anyone noticing that I had. 365 days of being the invisible wall between my sister's perfect wedding and the reality of who she actually was on paper. She texted me at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. "Hey, so we've been thinking about the guest list and there just isn't a place for you. The wedding is for more important people. I hope you understand." The bedroom was still dark. The heavy Florida dark before 7 in the morning, where the streetlight comes in orange around the edges of the blinds, and the AC is cycling, and the whole apartment has the feeling of a held breath. I read the text once, read it a second time to make sure I had not misread it, and then I laughed. Not a polite laugh, not a quiet one. A single, sharp sound in the dark room that surprised me. I set the phone face down on the nightstand, got up, and went to make coffee. The apartment was doing its morning thing around me. The AC cycling on with its familiar low hum, the light coming in brighter now around the edges of the blinds, the sound of the couple upstairs, walking their dog down the hallway at approximately the same time they walk it every morning, the jingle of the leash clasp audible through the ceiling. My feet on the kitchen tile were cold. The coffee maker did what it does, which is make noise for 4 minutes and then go quiet, and during those 4 minutes I stood at the counter with my hands flat on the granite and looked at the backsplash tiles I had picked out 2 years ago when I moved in small white subway tiles that cost me $11 per square foot, and that I installed myself over a weekend with a YouTube tutorial and a rented tile cutter because I did not want to pay someone $1,600 to do it. That is how I am built. I find the gap between what something costs and what it should cost, and I close the gap myself, and I do not mention it to anyone because mentioning it would require explaining the gap, and explaining the gap would require someone to listen. By the time the coffee was ready, the decision was already made. I work in hospitality marketing. I know how events are built. I know who signs the contracts, who backstops the deposits, who makes the calls that turn a venue from a line on a spreadsheet into a room where 200 people celebrate. For the past year, I had been the person making those calls for my sister Stacy's wedding. Not because she asked, because I saw the problem and solved it, which is what I do, which is what I have always done in this family, and which is apparently something I need to stop doing for people who categorize me as not important enough. Let me walk you through the architecture, because the architecture is the story. The Bayshore Grand on Bayshore Boulevard charges a $9,800 baseline deposit for wedding events. They require a credit check on the primary contract holder. Stacy's credit score is 520. She has a collection notice from a Tampa area gym she joined and stopped paying in March, and $14,000 outstanding on a Discover card she services with a minimum payment roughly every other month. She cannot hold a direct contract with the Bayshore Grand. I booked the venue through Meridian Hospitality Group's corporate account. Our corporate rate brought the deposit to $6,400. $3,400 less than the baseline, and the personal guarantee on the contract, the liability backstop that says if the client fails to pay, we will bore my name. Denise Marchetti at Petal & Co. did the florals. Denise's firm has been a marketing client of mine for 3 years. In that time, I have put her company name in front of the convention planners at 4 Tampa hotel groups, written the copy for her 2 award submissions, and recommended her to 6 corporate clients who needed florals for events. She considers herself in my professional debt, and she says so when I see her at industry mixers. She priced the Walsh Hensley wedding at $4,480. The retail value of the arrangements she built was $11,200. She showed me her wholesale breakdown out of professional courtesy on a Tuesday afternoon in her shop, standing across the work table with white blooms on every surface. She gave Stacy a 60% discount because I asked her to. Joy Fisher, who was my college roommate for 4 years at USF and who is now the owner-operator of Fisher & Co., Events agreed to cater the reception for $8,000. $8,000 is her cost on a 200-person event. Market rate for Joy's operation is $22,000. She absorbed a $14,000 reduction as a personal favor to me, not to Stacy, not to the Walsh family, but to me specifically, because we have been friends since a Wednesday night study session in our freshman dorm, when she helped me rebuild a marketing presentation that my laptop ate, and she has never once kept track of what she has given me. Derek Solis, who has photographed 4 Meridian Company events over the past 2 years, and who sends me a handwritten thank you card after every single one on cream stock with a red pen, quoted $3,200 for the wedding day. His standard rate is $7,500. $4,300 he left on the table because I asked. Add the venue, the florals, the catering, the photography, $22,080 in contracted services. Add the total retail value of the discounts extended and the personal guarantees I was carrying on Stacy's behalf, and the number reaches $62,000. That is the number precise and not approximate, and not rounded up for effect. $62,000. I am not telling you this to make myself sound exceptional. I am telling you because Stacy did not know any of it. She received each invoice and each booking confirmation the way you receive the weather as a neutral feature of the landscape, something that simply was requiring no investigation into where it came from. She went to 4 cake tastings with a wedding planner she found on Instagram. She spent $1,200 on calligraphed invitations. She posted the venue on her Instagram stories with a caption that said, "Dreams really do come true," and got 412 likes. There was a Tuesday afternoon in July when Stacy came to a meeting with Denise Marchetti at the Petal & Co. showroom. I had arranged the meeting. Denise had cleared 2 hours from her schedule to walk through the centerpiece options and the archway concepts. Stacy arrived 35 minutes late, carrying iced coffee from the place on Dale Mabry, and spent the first 10 minutes on her phone, while Denise stood patiently beside an arrangement she had assembled that morning as a reference. Peace, white roses, and eucalyptus in a glass cylinder that caught the afternoon light through the shop window. When Stacy finally looked up, she said, "These are pretty." She pointed at a different arrangement on the display shelf, one Denise had built for a corporate client the week before. "Can we do something more like that?" Denise looked at me. I looked at Denise. We had one of those exchanges that women in professional contexts have learned to conduct with their eyes. Denise said, "Of course. Let me put together some options in the voice of someone who has been in client services long enough to absorb the cost of being polite without expecting credit for it." Stacy left 20 minutes later. She said to Denise at the door, "You're so talented, this is going to be amazing." She did not say anything to me. In the car afterward, she texted me a smiley face and the words that went great. She mentioned once to my mother that she was so grateful for Andrea's connections. That was the full extent of the acknowledgement. One sentence. Said to someone else, at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, those connections, all of them, every dollar, every favor, every professional debt I had quietly collected and called in over 12 months, were dismissed in a text with a smiley face. $62,000. 1 year of my professional credibility. Not important enough. I drank my coffee and looked out the window at the Tampa morning. The sun was coming up flat and pale over the rooflines the way it does in October before the heat arrives and makes everything certain. The phone rang at 9:30. My mother. I answered it because her opening move was already clear and I preferred to have the conversation while the coffee was still warm. "She told you," I said. "Honey," Patrice's voice had that frequency she uses when she is managing a situation, warm and slightly pained at once, as if she is sorry for both parties equally, and the sorrow itself is a service she is providing. "She told me it came out wrong." "It came out exactly right," I said. "She sent it at 6:47 inches the morning, before her first cup of coffee. She did not sit with it. She's under so much stress. You know how Stacy gets when she's planning something." "I do know how Stacy gets," I said. "I have been managing how Stacy gets for 12 months. "That's not what I mean." "Tell me what you mean then." A pause. I could hear Patrice breathing in her Clearwater kitchen, the one with the tile backsplash she has been meaning to update for 6 years and will not update, because updating it would require making a decision, and Patrice does not make decisions. She manages other people's reactions to the decisions they were going to make anyway. She's under so much stress. "You know how Stacy gets when she's planning something." The sentence just stopped there, trailing off. I had heard the end of it many times. What she does not say is you know how Stacy gets, and it is your job to accommodate it because Stacy's getting is a given, and your capacity for patience is the variable that gets adjusted. Mom. I set my mug down on the counter. The porcelain click of it was the only sound in the apartment for a second. I am not going to argue about what she meant. Tell me what you actually want from this call. Patrice went quiet for a moment. I want you to be the bigger person. It's her wedding. Can't you just let this one thing go? Let what thing go exactly, Andrea? I'm asking genuinely. Tell me what it is you want me to let go. Is it the text, or is it the year before the text? Because those are different things. A longer silence. When Patrice speaks from behind the managing voice from behind the frequency, she sounds tired in a way she would never admit. She didn't mean to hurt you. Mom. I picked up my coffee mug and turned it in my hands. The ceramic was warm against my palms. You have been telling me Stacy didn't mean things for 27 years. At some point, the collection of things she didn't mean starts to look like what she means. You are always so hard on her. I'm going to think about it, I said. I have to go. I hung up, opened my laptop. The email to the Bayshore Grands events coordinator took 3 sentences. I was withdrawing my personal guarantee from the Walsh-Hensley event contract effective immediately. They should contact Stacy Walsh directly for new payment arrangements. I CC'd Meridian's account manager on the message and reviewed the wording once before sending. The email to Denise at Petal & Co. took 2 sentences. The discount arrangement on the Walsh-Hensley florals had been based on my ongoing professional relationship with her firm. I was no longer involved in the event, so she should reach out to the client directly about current pricing. The email to Derek Solis took 3 sentences. His arrangement to photograph the Walsh-Hensley wedding had been made through our professional relationship. He should contact Stacy Walsh directly to confirm terms and payment or to decline the job at his discretion. I drafted each one without the urge to explain myself. I did not write "My sister texted me this morning." I did not write "I am sorry for any inconvenience." I wrote the way you write when the facts are sufficient and the feeling is not anyone else's business. I have written a great many emails in my professional life that contained information I was not going to contextualize for the recipient. These were those emails. I sent them at 10:08 a.m. By noon, I had read receipts back from the Bayshore Grands coordinator and from Derek. Denise called rather than replied, and when I did not pick up, she left a brief voicemail. "Andrea, I got your message." "Of course, let me know if you need anything." Which was Denise's way of saying she understood without requiring a debrief, which is one of the things I have always respected about her. The 4th outreach I handled by phone. Joy was in her catering kitchen. I could hear the sound of knives on a prep board, the warm, layered smell of garlic and rosemary somehow traveling through the phone line the way smells do when you have spent enough hours in someone's kitchen to reconstruct the whole room from a single sound. She was prepping for a Saturday corporate lunch. Beyond the chopping, I could hear the hiss of something in a pan, the soft percussion of refrigerator doors opening and closing, the steady hum of a kitchen running at full efficiency. "She texted me," I said. "Oh yeah," Joy kept chopping. "What did she say?" I read the whole thing to her, including the smiley face. Joy laughed. Low and slow, the laugh of someone who had been following this particular story for years and just reached a page she already half expected. "Okay," she said. "So what are you doing?" "I'm withdrawing my guarantee." The chopping stopped. "That takes the whole thing down," Joy said. "Yes. Including my contract. Yes." A beat. I could hear Joy breathing. Then she said, "I need you to know something." I turned down 2 other bookings for this date. I moved the Ortega family to a Friday and pushed the Castillo wedding to the following Saturday. Those are clients I have had for 3 years. "I did that as a favor to you." "I know," I said. "I'm sorry." "Okay." She picked up the knife again. "I need to think about whether I'm going to be angry about that later. Right now I'm not, but I might be. That's fair." "Are you going to be okay? I'm going to book a vacation," I said. She made a small sound somewhere between a laugh and a sigh, where I already had a second browser tab open. "I'm looking." She went back to her prep. I went back to my laptop. By the time I had sent the 4 emails, including a formal notice to Joy's business account for her records, I had 3 tabs open comparing Caribbean resorts. I closed 2 of them. Rosewood, Half Moon Bay, and Jamaica. 7 nights. The same week as Stacy's wedding. I read the amenities. I checked the cancellation policy, which I did not expect to use but checked out of habit. I looked at the photograph of the balcony facing the water, the small table with 2 chairs, the quality of the light coming off the ocean in the afternoon. I made the booking in under 7 minutes. The confirmation landed in my inbox at 11:42 a.m. Subject line, upcoming reservation, Rosewood Half Moon Bay, your stay begins Saturday. I closed the laptop, put it in its case, and set it by the door. Then I went back to the kitchen and made a second cup of coffee, which I drank sitting on my couch in the quiet of a Tuesday morning with nothing on my to-do list and no one expecting anything from me. The couch held me and the coffee cooled in my hands, and I did not check my email. In a year of Tuesdays, that was the first one that belonged to no one but me. I called Joy back at noon. I booked it, I said. Jamaica. The week of the wedding. A pause. Smart. I don't feel smart. I feel like I'm waiting for something. You are, Joy said. But so is she. She just doesn't know it yet. I let that sit for a moment. Outside my window, the Tampa street was doing its afternoon thing, a delivery truck backing up 2 kids on bikes, ordinary life proceeding at its ordinary pace. I'll call you when I land, I said. Call me from the beach, Joy said. The Tampa airport smells like sunscreen and fast food in the early morning, which is either deeply American or deeply specific to Florida, and I find it comforting either way. I was at the gate by 7 a.m. on Saturday with a carry-on bag and a yellow legal pad I had brought for a client project I had no intention of touching. The gate area was full of people in vacation clothes, the relaxed, shoulders-down posture of people who have already mentally arrived somewhere else while their bodies wait for the plane. I fit in among them, which was its own kind of relief. My phone showed 17 missed calls by the time I boarded, 3 from Patrice, 2 from Stacy, and 12 from a number I did not place, which turned out to be the Bayshore Grand's events line. I put the phone on airplane mode and watched Tampa disappear through the oval window. The resort was exactly what the photographs promised, which is not always true of resorts. The light in Jamaica in the early afternoon comes down flat and warm and makes everything look as if it has been polished to a warm stillness, the way afternoon light works in places that are not trying to be anything other than what they are. The air smelled of brine and something green and heavy flowers I could not identify from the path to the main entrance, and the ocean sound arrived before I could see the water low and rhythmic against whatever the coastline did in that specific cove. My room had a balcony that faced the water. There was a small table on it with 2 chairs exactly as in the photograph. I set my bag inside and walked straight out to the balcony and sat down in one of the chairs and ordered a rum punch from the app on my phone and looked at the ocean for a long time. The water was the color that water is in photographs of Jamaica, which sounds like a useless thing to say. But when you arrive somewhere and the thing everyone photographs is actually that blue, there is a moment of mild disorientation, of adjusting your expectations upward. My phone lit up on the table beside me. Stacy's name on the screen. I watched it ring to voicemail, then Patrice's name replaced it, then the Bayshore Grand's main events line. I silenced all 3 and went back to the ocean. By the end of the first day, I had 14 missed calls, not counting deliberately. The number was just there in the notification bar, a small red badge visible from the corner of my eye every time I picked up the phone to check the time or order something from the room app. I was reading a book I had downloaded before the flight, a novel set in coastal Maine by an author I had been meaning to read for 2 years and kept not getting to. I read for 2 hours in the afternoon light on the balcony with the rum punch half finished beside me, and I finished 3 chapters before dinner. The prose was good. Someone had thought carefully about the sentences. I appreciated that in a way I might not have a week earlier. I ate alone at a table by the water. Ordered something with shrimp and lime, the local preparation with a sauce I could not identify and did not try to. I ate every bite and tasted it. I ordered a second glass of wine and finished that too. I sat at that table by the water for 40 minutes after the bill came, just listening to the sound the ocean makes against a rocky coastline, which is different from the Gulf sound I grew up with, sharper and more percussive, a working sound, rather than a resting one. I slept 8 hours. I could not tell you the last time I had slept 8 consecutive hours. The next morning I woke to the sound of the ocean through the balcony door I had left cracked open, a sound so steady and close it took me a moment to place where I was. The ceiling fan was turning slowly above me. The sheets were white and cool and smelled of nothing personal, which was its own comfort, sleeping in a bed that did not know me and had no expectations. I lay there for several minutes, just breathing and listening to the water. I ate breakfast at a small table on the restaurant terrace. Eggs and fruit and coffee, a simple arrangement on white plates. The coffee was strong and slightly bitter in a way I liked. 2 tables away, a couple in their 50s were reading separate books and occasionally reaching across the table to touch each other's hands without looking up, a gesture so practiced and unperformative that it was either 30 years of marriage or the best acting I had ever seen. I ate slowly and did not check my phone. The novel I had downloaded was about a woman who restores houses on the coast of Maine, tearing out old walls and finding the original structure underneath, and the metaphor was obvious, but I did not mind. The author wrote clean, uncluttered sentences that respected the reader's ability to draw conclusions without being told what to draw, and I appreciated that. I read on the balcony with the ocean below me and the sun tracking across the sky, and for 3 hours nothing in the world required me to respond to it. The second day the calls came faster. By noon I had 23 missed calls. By mid-afternoon a voicemail from Stacy arrived that I played once, holding the phone slightly away from my ear. "You need to call me back." Her voice had that flat, compressed quality I had not heard since we were teenagers, when she was working towards something she was not getting, and the pressure of not getting it made her sound like a wire pulled tight. "The venue is saying there's no guarantee on file under a personal account. The photographer's contract references some corporate arrangement I don't understand. Denise is talking about a discount, some prior arrangement, some relationship with your firm. I don't know what she means. I don't know what's happening. You need to call me back. You need to fix this." I played it twice to make sure I had heard it correctly. "You need to fix this." 5 words delivered with the absolute certainty of someone who has never been told no by the person she is speaking to, because I have never told her no. 31 years of yes, of accommodation, of filling in the gaps. She left behind her the way water fills a hole in sand, silently and completely, and she stood on the dry ground and never once looked down to see what was holding her. Up. Ryan, her fiancé, had called twice too. His voicemails were shorter. "Hey Andrea, not sure what's going on with the vendor stuff. Can you give me a call when you get a chance?" Polite. Confused. The tone of a man who has been told there is a problem and has been given his fiancé's version of whose fault it is. I set the phone down on the balcony table. It was warm from sitting in the sun. The ocean below was very flat in the afternoon. I watched a pelican circle once and drop into the water and come up with something silver in its beak, and the whole transaction took about 4 seconds and was completely indifferent to everything I was thinking about. I went inside, changed into my swimsuit, and walked down to the beach. A quarter-mile south along the waterline, past the other guests with their drinks and their separate silences, until I found a stretch of sand with nobody on it. I sat down and let the water come up over my feet twice, 3 times, steady and cool at the edges where the shallow water ran thin. The sound of it was immediate and close, each small wave erasing itself against the sand and drawing back. I sat with that for a while. I had been the difficult one in my family since I was old enough for the label to stick. Not difficult, like genuinely hard to be around. Difficult because she asks questions. Difficult because she does not perform gratitude for things she did not receive. Difficult because she names what others prefer to leave unnamed. The label was a management tool, a way of explaining away a child who would not perform the expected role. And I had spent years trying to disprove it by solving problems quietly, filling gaps before they became visible, absorbing costs before anyone could see there were costs. I built things in the dark because building in the dark meant nobody could say I was doing it for credit. I pressed my palms into the sand behind me. The grit of it was specific and real. Out on the water, a small motorboat was moving south, its engine a thin, distant sound against the steady baseline of the surf. Stacy had never once asked how the wedding was so affordable. In 12 months of planning, she accepted the venue cost as a simple fact about Tampa hospitality rates. She accepted Joy's pricing as Joy being generous. She accepted the florals as Denise being a sweetheart. She went to 4 cake tastings with her wedding planner and spent $1,200 on invitations and described the photography and the flowers and the venue as exactly what she wanted, and in all that time it had never occurred to her to ask how I had never said. That was the part that sat in me with the most weight. I never said it to Stacy, and I had never said it to Patrice, and I had said it to Joy only in the abstract way. You say things to someone who already has most of the picture and is waiting for you to find the rest of it. I had not said it out loud, had not put a number to it and let the number stand in a room, had not handed anyone the full account and said this is what it actually was. I picked up a flat piece of shell and turned it between my fingers. The edge of it was sharp. I made this happen. The phrase settled in my chest with something heavier than pride and lighter than anger. Grief is the closest word the way grief is when it is not about losing something recent but about finally seeing the shape of something old. I walked back up the beach in time for dinner. The sun was still above the tree line, the light going gold across the water in that slow Caribbean way where the whole sky participates, and two other guests were building a sandcastle with a child who was entirely serious about the project. The child was placing shells along the top of a wall with the concentration of someone who is being paid to get it right. I walked past them and up the path toward the resort. At dinner that night, I ordered the same shrimp dish and a glass of white wine and sat at the same table by the water. The waiter, a man named Cedric who had served me the night before, brought the wine without being asked. "Same spot," he said and smiled, and I appreciated that he said it as an observation rather than a question. I ate. I drank the wine. I pulled up my banking app and looked at the number in my checking account, which was the number it always is, the number of someone who budgets carefully and plans ahead and does not make impulsive purchases except for the one impulsive purchase currently surrounding me in every direction, with warm, salt air and the sound of the ocean. The resort was costing me $3,200 for the week. That was real money. It was also less than a 20th of what I had been carrying for Stacy's wedding, a comparison I did not make on purpose, but which arrived in my head fully formed and sat there with a clarity I had not asked for. On day 3, Joy called. I answered because Joy had earned that. "The Castillo wedding found another caterer," she said before I could speak, "but the Ortega family didn't. They went ahead and confirmed someone else when I told them I couldn't take their date back. That's a $9,500 contract I lost. I need you to know that number. Joy." I sat up straighter on the balcony. The ocean was silver gray in the afternoon, very flat, the way the ocean goes flat when the light changes and it looks more like metal than water. That is on me. I should have mapped out what my decision would cost you before I made it. I know it's on you. No anger in it, just precision. That's Joy. She does not spend warmth where it is not needed. I also want to tell you that your sister called my business line. She left a voicemail saying she was so disappointed that I was abandoning her and that she'd counted on me. As if she had ever spoken to me in her life. What did she say exactly? I transcribed it. Joy's voice had a dry quality when she was reading from notes. "Joy, this is Stacy Walsh, Andrea's sister. I don't know what's happened, but I really need you to know that I was counting on you for the catering, and I think it's really unfair that you're making this decision. Without even talking to me first, because we had an agreement. And I just..." A pause. The voicemail cut off. She went over the time limit. I was quiet for a moment. The ocean below the balcony moved in its slow, uninterested way. "I'm going to absorb the loss on the Ortega booking," Joy said. "I'm not going to be angry at you about it forever, but I want you to know what it cost." "I hear you. Okay." A shift in the background sounds the familiar kitchen warmth of her operation coming through. "Where are you? I can hear water." "Jamaica." "Good." A pause. "Are you okay?" I did not have a true answer yet. "I don't know," I said. Joy took that with the quiet of someone who already has a sense of where you are and is patient enough to wait for you to get there. That evening, I ate dinner alone again. Cedric brought the wine again without asking. I ordered fish this time, something local with a mango chutney that was sweet and sharp at once, and I ate it slowly and watched the water go dark. A family at the next table was celebrating a birthday. The daughter, maybe 8 years old, wore a paper crown and was telling a story to her parents with the absolute authority of someone who has never been interrupted mid-sentence. Both parents were leaned in. The father had his chin on his hand. The mother was laughing before the punchline arrived. I watched them for a moment, then looked down at my plate. The fish was excellent. I finished it and ordered coffee and sat with the cup in both hands and let the warmth of it move into my fingers. My mother had thrown Stacy a birthday dinner every year until Stacy moved out at 22. She had thrown me birthday dinners until I was 14, and then they became cards, and then the cards became texts, and then the texts became Stacy's birthday posts on Instagram, where I appeared in the comments writing, "Happy birthday, sis," with 2 exclamation points and a heart emoji. The math of that, the slow subtraction of ceremony, is something I had never put a number to before sitting at a table in Jamaica watching a stranger's daughter wear a paper crown. I signed the check and walked back to my room. That night I sat on the balcony at 2 a.m. with the phone on the table beside me and the ocean below and counted the calls. 91. 43 from Stacy's number 21, from Patrice 11, from Ryan's number 9, from the Bayshore Grand, and scattered numbers I did not recognize. I was not satisfied. I had been waiting for satisfaction, for the clean completion of something. It had not arrived. I sat with that for a while, letting it be what it was. What I had instead was a heaviness that lived in the same zip code as a Christmas when I was 14, and Stacy got the trip to New York, and I got a sweater and I had pretended the sweater was fine. Not just to my parents, to myself. The pretending had cost something I could only describe now as the slow erosion of my own outline, and I had been paying slow interest on it for 17 years without once stopping to examine the original debt. There was a specific memory that surfaced while I sat there. My mother's kitchen 5 years ago, Thanksgiving. I had driven from Tampa to Clearwater the morning before the holiday to help with the cooking, which meant arriving at 9 a.m. and leaving at 10 p.m., and Stacy had arrived at 2 p.m. and departed at 7. At the end of the evening, my mother said to both of us, "I could not have done this without you girls." The sentence was addressed to both of us, and I received it the way you receive a thing distributed equally when you know it is not. I washed the last of the dishes and drove home in the dark. My hands were loose in my lap out on the balcony. I was not holding my phone. I hold my phone constantly the way you carry something you have convinced yourself you cannot function without. My hands in my lap without it were like a room that has had furniture in it for years and is suddenly bare. A fishing boat moved across the water about a quarter-mile out. Its light was small and steady and very bright against the dark, moving south at a pace that made it look fixed for a while before you noticed the incremental change in its position against the horizon. I went inside, got the yellow legal pad from my work bag, sat at the small desk in the room, moved the complimentary fruit basket to the nightstand and started to write. I wrote for 2 hours, or perhaps longer. 3 sheets of legal pad in my small, exact handwriting, which gets tighter and more crowded the more I care about what I am saying. By the time I stopped, I had a letter I had not planned to write. I had planned something structured, a list, the kind of organized processing my therapist had suggested after a difficult stretch in my late 20s. But what came out was addressed to Stacy, and it said things I had never said to anyone, including myself, and some of it surprised me. I did not go back to sleep that night. On day 6, I woke up and looked at my phone for the first time in 24 hours. 110 missed calls. I lay there with the phone above my face and sorted through them. 43 from Stacy's cell, 29 from Patrice's mainline, 14 from Ryan, 12 from the Bayshore Grand's events office, 7 from Patrice's secondary, number 5 from a Tampa prefix. I did not recognize 110. The number had a specific quality I had not anticipated, a definiteness, a refusal to be abstract. It meant 110 separate moments when someone on the other end chose to reach for a version of me who still fixed things. 110 times they picked up a phone and dialed and expected the person who answered to be available. I lay there and absorbed that for a while. I called Joy. She answered on the second ring. "How are you?" I looked at my phone, I said. "How many?" 110. Joy was quiet for a moment. Then, "I need to tell you something. The Castillo wedding hadn't confirmed anyone knew yet. I called them yesterday, and they took me back. So the real loss is closer to $2,000. The deposits on the 2 dates I had to turn away before I knew they might come back. Joy, 2,000 is survivable. I just need you to have the right number. I'm paying you back." "You absolutely will," she said, and there was warmth in it. "What are you going to do about the 110 calls?" "Nothing," I said. I wrote a letter. A pause. "When are you sending it today?" "Before my flight." "Okay," Joy said. "That's the right thing." I showered and packed and then sat at the desk and read through the 3 pages again. The letter was not kind exactly, but it was true. It laid out the full architecture, the Bayshore Grand Deposit, and the Meridian Guarantee. $6,400. That is the deposit. The contract that said in the language of hospitality law that my employer guaranteed the client's obligations. My name on the liability line, not hers. The Petal & Co. discount $11,200 in retail floral arrangements invoiced to Stacy at $4,480. $6,720 that Denise absorbed because I asked her to. Joy's catering $14,000 below market rate. Derek's photography $4,300 below standard. The running total. $62,000. Not a round number. The specific accumulation of a year of professional credibility extended, called in and deployed on behalf of a woman who described the result as exactly what I wanted. Near the end of the letter I had written, I saved the screenshot. Timestamped 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. "You sent that text before your first cup of coffee. I know your schedule because you are my sister. You do not get up before 8 when you can avoid it. You set an alarm to send it." That is the part I keep coming back to, not the text itself, the alarm. "Then you said there was no place for me. You were wrong. I was the foundation. The venue, the flowers, the catering, the photographer, all of it ran through me. You did not know that, and I am choosing to believe you did not know it on purpose, that it never occurred to you to ask, that you took it all as simply how things were. I believe that is true. I also believe it is worse than if you had known. The last paragraph: I am not writing this so you will feel guilty. I am writing it so you will know. What you do with that information is your decision. Whether we have anything after this is also your decision. I am done building things for people who do not look down. I photographed the pages on the balcony in the morning light, the yellow paper bright against the railing and the ocean behind it, printed them at the hotel business center, folded them into thirds, addressed the envelope to Stacy's Tampa apartment in my small, exact handwriting. I sealed it and looked at her name on the front of it for a moment. I dropped it in the hotel mailbox at 10:15 a.m. The desk attendant, a woman with reading glasses on a beaded chain and a name tag that said Grace, looked at the envelope and said 5 to 7 days to Tampa. She set it in the outgoing tray with the same care she would give any piece of mail, which is to say none at all, which is exactly correct. It was a letter. It would arrive or it would not. The postal system does not care about the contents. I had 1 hour before my taxi. I had spent the whole week on the balcony or on the sand, watching the ocean from a distance, reading and writing. Not in it. That last morning I went in. The water was warm and very clear, and the current pulled south, so I swam against it with long, unhurried strokes, not fighting hard but not surrendering either. I went out about 50 yards and floated on my back for a while, with the sky above me completely open and the sound of the water in my ears, the whole ocean sound coming up through the back of my head where it rested in the water. I stayed there until my skin started to feel the sun as a real thing. I came back in and picked up my towel. My phone lit up. Stacy's number. I shook the sand off the towel, spread it on the chair, sat down and let the sun dry my shoulders. The smell of salt water came off my skin in small, steady waves. I did not turn the phone over. The flight home was uneventful. Tampa, at night from above, has that grid glow, the bay, dark in the middle, the streets lit around it, the causeway, a string of light leading somewhere definite. I landed at 1017 and took a rideshare home instead of the shuttle because I was tired enough that waiting for a bus was not something I was prepared to do. My apartment was exactly as I had left it. Coffee cup in the dish rack, laptop case by the door. A thin accumulation of a week of absence, light dust on the kitchen counter, mail under the slot, the AC cycling in its familiar rhythm. The rooms looked the same and looked different the way spaces look when you return to them carrying something new. I put down my bag. I did not check the phone that night. In the morning, I unpacked methodically toiletries, first shoes in the closet, clothes sorted into laundry and hanging empty suitcase on its shelf. I put the yellow legal pad on the desk. The original handwritten draft of the letter, 3 pages in my small, crowded handwriting, the ink pressed harder on certain lines. I picked it up, read the last line, I am done building things for people who do not look down, and set it back down. My laptop was still in its case. I carried it to the desk and opened it. The first message that loaded was from Lynn Harcastle, Meridian's account manager. Subject: Walsh Hensley event contract closure confirmation. The Bayshore Grand had released the event date 3 days earlier and rebooked it to another client. The Meridian account had been restored to standard standing, with no outstanding liability. She wrote Andrea just a note to confirm this is fully resolved on our end. Let me know if you need anything. I read the email twice, closed the laptop, and went to make coffee. While it was brewing, the phone rang. A number I did not recognize, not a Tampa area code. I listened to it ring 4 times, then 5, then 6, and then it went to voicemail. I poured my coffee and stood by the window and drank it while the Tampa morning came through the glass. The flat, patient light of fall in Florida, which is not dramatically different from summer but carries a certain quality of slowing down, as if the year is getting around to cooling off and taking its time about it. The street below was quiet. A neighbor's dog was doing something investigative near the base of a palm tree. Ordinary life proceeding at its ordinary pace. The phone stayed quiet. I did not call back. The week that followed was ordinary in a way I had not experienced in over a year. I went to work. I ran a client debrief at Meridian on Wednesday. I grocery shopped at the Publix on Kennedy and cooked dinner for myself on Thursday, chicken and rice and the kind of salad you make when you are feeding one person and do not need to impress anyone. I cleaned my apartment on Saturday morning, the deep clean I do once a month with the vacuum attachment that gets under the couch, and I found a pen under there that I had been looking for since August. I put the pen on my desk next to the yellow legal pad. The handwritten draft of the letter sat there, 3 pages of my tight handwriting, and I did not reread it. The original had been mailed. What I had on my desk was a record, not a weapon. I slept well. I ate meals at regular hours. I answered work emails within the window my clients expected, and I did not answer calls from Stacy or Patrice, of which there were 11 that week, decreasing in frequency from Tuesday to Friday. The natural decay rate of urgency when the urgent thing has already happened and cannot be unhappened. The letter arrived on a Thursday, 11 days after I dropped it in the hotel mailbox. I know this because Patrice called me on a Friday 3 weeks after I got home. The one call I answered, 4 minutes. Patrice said the wedding had happened. Different venue, smaller, Ryan's family had covered part of the cost. She said it was lovely in the tone she uses when she does not want to describe something in any detail. She did not mention the letter. I did not ask. I'm glad it happened, I said. And I meant it the way you mean things that are true without being simple or clean. We said we would talk soon. We hung up. 1 week after that, Denise at Petal & Co. sent me a note in the mail. Handwritten on heavy cream cardstock, the kind that signals someone was taught to write thank you notes and took the instructions seriously. She wrote that Stacy had called her apparently very upset about the discount withdrawal and that Denise had explained very gently that the pricing arrangement had been based on her professional relationship with my firm, not with the wedding client. She wrote, I want you to know she heard it from someone other than you. I read the note at my kitchen counter. I had the full account of the architecture already in 3 pages of legal pad on my desk in the email trail from the Bayshore Grand and from the Meridian account manager in my own memory of 12 months of phone calls in favor, negotiations, and quiet guarantees. But Denise's note carried a different weight than any of that. Not validation in the way people usually mean that word. Something more like it was real. It was always real. Someone else had stood in the room and seen the walls. I pinned the note to the corkboard above my desk between a client brief and an expired parking permit I have been meaning to throw away for months. 3 months after that, Meridian held its fall client dinner at the Bayshore Grand. The same hotel. The same terrace above the bay that I had spent 12 months securing for my sister's wedding, and then, in an 11-minute window on a Tuesday morning, released back into the available market. I was there in a professional capacity. Meridian is my account, and I was running the event. Joy was catering it. I saw her from across the terrace when I arrived, directing her crew through the setup with the combination of efficiency and genuine warmth that makes her good at what she does. She was wearing a black chef's coat with Fisher & Co. in small white text on the left breast. Her crew was assembling a cheese board the size of a small coffee table, and Joy was adjusting the arrangement with 2 fingers in the way she always adjusts things precise and unhurried, her head tilted to the left slightly the way it goes. When she is deciding whether something is right, Joy looked up across the room and saw me. We exchanged the thing that old friends exchange across a distance, an expression that takes about 2 seconds and covers a great deal of ground. I set my bag at my seat and went over to say hello properly. Fisher & Co. Looks good in here, I said. Meridian has good taste in venues, Joy said. She was setting out the last row of the cheese arrangement with the same precision she applies to everything. How are you doing? Better than I was in October, I said. That's a low bar, she said, but I'll take it. She had the dry warmth she always has and the kitchen knowledge that makes her good at reading what is actually happening with a person. She looked at me for a moment and then went back to the cheese board. Food's good tonight, she said. Trust me. The dinner went well. The Meridian clients were relaxed, which they tend to be when the food is right, and Joy's food was right. Tampa, in November, has that window warm enough to stay on a terrace above water, cool enough to want to stay the whole evening, the air doing what Tampa air rarely does in a gracious way, which is cooperating. The bay below the railing was dark and moving slowly, city lights in long, broken lines across it. During the second hour, Joy came to my elbow with 2 glasses of wine from the event bar. Last one before the client wolves descend. Last one, I said. We walked to the edge of the terrace together where the railing looked out over the bay. Tampa Bay at evening has a smell I have stopped trying to identify and started simply accepting as one of the things that means I am here, part salt, part city, part something green and low that comes off the water when the air is still. How are you? Joy said. I'm good. It was simply true without the qualification I had been adding to that sentence for months. I mean it. I know. She looked out at the water. Did Stacy ever? I don't know, I said. I genuinely don't know. That was also simply true. I did not know if she had read the letter or what she had done with it or whether the smaller wedding had left her with anything that needed examining. I did not know if she and Ryan had settled into something good or whether the scaffolding I had withdrawn had left a gap she could name. The open end of it was mine to hold. It did not have to be resolved tonight, or any night. Joy nodded. We stood at the railing and looked out at the same stretch of dark water for a while. The terrace had its full complement of Meridian clients by then, and the hum of professional conversation was behind us, and Joy's crew was moving efficiently through the room, and I had a glass of wine in my hand and the bay was below. Us and November was being what November in Tampa is, which is the year's best thing. I picked up the table placard from my seat on my way back inside Andrea Walsh Meridian Hospitality Group, clean sans serif on cream cardstock. I held it for a moment, set it on the stack for the venue staff to clear. Outside November, air warm enough to be Florida and cool enough to feel the year turning. The parking lot was half empty by the time I reached my car. I sat behind the wheel for a moment before starting the engine, the fishing boat light on the dark water. When you are in the ocean, a light on the water looks small. You can see it because you are looking for it because you are in the current and you need something fixed to orient yourself, and the light is fixed, but you are not. You are being moved, and the light at distance tells you where you are, relative to everything else. When you are on the boat, you know how bright you are. You cannot see yourself from where you stand, the light is behind you, but the water gives it back in reflection. Steady, specific, moving with the water but not changed by it. I had been in the current for a long time. I started the car and drove home through the Tampa streets, which were quiet and lit and very familiar. I drove with the windows down because the air was good, and I took the long way around the bay because it was worth taking. When I got home, I made tea and sat on my own couch in my own apartment with the phone quiet on the table beside me and the Tampa night outside the window and let the quiet be what it was. There is a corkboard above my desk that holds, among other things, Denise's handwritten note, an expired parking permit, and a photograph of Joy and me at a Fisher & Co. launch event 3 years ago. We are standing in front of a table that Joy styled, and I helped her promote both of us, holding glasses of something sparkling and squinting slightly into the camera, and Joy has her arm around my shoulders. I am laughing at something someone said just before the shutter went off, and my face in the photograph looks like someone who has not spent any part of that day carrying a stone in her pocket. I pass the corkboard every morning on my way to the kitchen. Some mornings I stop and look at it. Some mornings I do not. Both are fine. The Bayshore Grand has a new event on the books for the dates I released. I know this because it came up in a client meeting. The hotel mentioned a large booking for that weekend, and I heard the dates registered them and said nothing. Someone else's wedding. Someone else's architecture assembled by whoever assembles it, held together by whatever guarantees they could find. I have a new client project. I have a corporate event next quarter. I have lunch with Joy next week to go over the Meridian Fall recap numbers. My apartment is quiet in the mornings. I am sleeping 8 hours most nights. The letter is somewhere in Tampa, in Stacy's apartment or in a drawer or discarded or read once and set aside or read several times. I do not know which. I have been working on stopping the practice of running through the possibilities, which is something I have had to practice deliberately, the stopping. I am still practicing. I am getting better at it. What I know is this: the architecture was real. The $62,000 was real. The year of labor was mine, and it stands in the record regardless of whether anyone who walked on it ever looks down. I sat at the edge of a terrace above Tampa Bay on a November evening, with Joy beside me and 2 glasses of wine between us, and the water was dark below us and the city was lit behind us. Joy said, "Last one, before the client wolves descend." I said, "Last one," and we walked back into the room together. I did not take the placard when I left. I did not need to.
Thank you for being part of Lyra Echo Stories. If this story stayed with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because every echo never truly fades.